Okay. 2024 has ended. The fight year has concluded, and this is the Axel Awards. My spin on the MMA awards with some categories that are a little bit different, but I think highlight the best parts that this year had to offer in terms of fighters and people in general in the fight game. This is the Axel Awards. We're going to be going into these categories. Most exciting, best trash talker, flashiest finish, most impactful finish, fight of the year, most hype prospect, most underrated, and most improved. These are the categories. A little bit different, but doesn't stray too far off the MMA awards in general. And I am going to be explaining why these fighters and fights have been placed into these categories, highlighting the highlights of the year. So, we'll start with the most exciting fighter. It's not super controversial. There's a couple that I could have placed into this category that I think deserve it. Diego Lopez being one of them. Sadly for him, I went with the most obvious choice in Alex Pereira. His fights are always monumental. He's saved multiple cards this year. Every single fight he's been in has been a knockout. This year, he is the most exciting fighter of the year, in my opinion. And I think it's pretty clear as to why. He knocks out his opponents. He knocked out Yuri. He knocked out Jamal Hill at 300. He knocked out Roundtree to body shots in a very, very scary fight. When it's a Pereira fight, you do not know what's going to happen. Every single time Pereira fights, you are on the edge of your seat. Somebody's getting finished. His chin isn't the best, and his defense is scary at times, which makes for a very nerve-wracking fight to watch no matter what, especially if you're a Pereira fan, because he has gotten finished pretty badly in the past. So whenever you're in there watching a Pereira fight, it is just intense from start to finish. And I love every second about his fights. His style is my favorite style. Just all striking is my favorite style. And I love Alex Pereira. And he is the most exciting fighter of the year, in my opinion, by far. Next, we'll go to Best Trash Talker. I don't think this one is much of a surprise either. There's not, trash talking as an art has been diminished as of late, I would say, in the MMA world. But there's been one highlight this year that really gets it when it comes to trash talk, and I don't even think he really means to, really. But it's Dricus Du Plessis. I think that if you make both of the fighters you fought this year cry at the press conference, it puts you in the lead for this award, I think. He made Sean Strickland cry by talking about his dad, and he made Izzy cry by talking about his servants, and he beat both of them, one of them a lot more dominantly than the other. But that, to me, is what makes the best trash talker. Witty responses. He's not even that fluent, but the results are what matter. And having both of your opponents cry at the press conference is an amazing result to have. And he definitely earns you this reward, in my opinion, for Dricus. And there hasn't been much highlights outside of that. Marab has been kind of funny, but shit. Ilia Topuria has decent trash talk, but it's kind of awkward too. And just the result of your opponent crying twice. He's 2 for 2 in title fights. I think that goes to Dricus. Definitely. Next. Flashiest finish. So this one is the most like, holy shit, what was that type finish. The most like, it's not the biggest, it's not the biggest finish in terms of how it affects your career, but it's just pure striking, pure in the moment technique. What is like, holy shit moment. And I think it goes to a couple. Salikov, his spinning wheel kick is definitely up there for me against Sonkanan. But I think this guy edged it out a little bit. I think it goes to Shara with the double spinning back fist against Armin Petrosian. This shocked the fuck out of me when I was watching it. It was insane. Double spinning back fist. I'm pretty sure it might be the first in UFC history. It was crazy to watch in person. Nobody really expected it, and it was kind of the defining moment of Shara's finishing career because he was getting a little sketchy. We didn't really know how he could finish people effectively because he was not doing a great job of it unless you were a literal heavy bag. But in this fight, he showcased why goofy ass striking and his dumb, freaky, crazy style can work effectively in MMA. And this was the highlight of his UFC run and also the year, in my opinion, when it comes to crazy, flashy finishes. Good job, Shara Magomedov, and I hope we get more of this next year from him. He is very exciting to watch. Next, impactful finish. This one is based on career merit, what it gets you in your career. And this one is controversial. The other three, probably not. This one will probably be controversial to some people. I would like to hear your thoughts. The most obvious answer to most people, I would think, would be Max Holloway Gaethje on 300 for the BMF title, the last second of round 5 after destroying Justin Gaethje the whole fight. That is one of the craziest knockouts of all time. I agree with this. It is knockout of the year, in my opinion. But the most impactful finish, I think, goes to the person who beat Holloway this year, Ilia Topuria. Because of multiple factors. Holloway, having done that to Gaethje this year, having got that finish, having had that moment where everybody thinks he's on top of the fucking universe after that finish, and Ilia going in there with a lot of doubt from everyone and finishing probably the best chin in the game, I think this creates a superstar in Ilia Topuria. I think it creates a crazy storyline where he has now the two, probably the best back-to-back finishes of all time, going from Volk to Holloway. It creates so much hype for featherweight and for his career and for fights going forward. I feel super bad for Holloway. And his finish over Gaethje was insane. And if that was just it, if that's all he did this year, and Ilia fought someone else, definitely goes to Max. But since Max did that to Gaethje, and then Ilia did this to him, I think this puts Ilia a little bit above that. And that is because of how good Max is. I'm not taking anything away from him. But being able to crack his chin at this point, that's impressive as fuck. Especially following 300. So that's why I put him there. And I kind of want to hear your thoughts if you disagree. Next. Fight of the year. So I'm pretty sure Daniel Huber got fight of the year for some. I thought it was a good fight. It was definitely a good fight. But I definitely think this one deserved it a little bit more. Miktek Oralbai versus Mijius Rebecki. I think this definitely deserves fight of the night. Or fight of the year, in my opinion. The amount of blood, the amount of damage on both people, the amount of times both people got rocked. It went everywhere the fight can go. It went on the ground for both sides on top. It was standing. There were submission attempts. There was knockouts. There was not knockouts. There was rocks. People got rocked all over the place. A lot of blood. Both people showed that they're fucking insane warriors. Oralbai showed he pretty much doesn't have a brain. And it definitely put the caveman narrative into a very, very better place, I would say. And yes, I think this is easily fight of the year for me. The way it went, the amount of damage, I think that has to be an influence on what fight is fight of the year. They really hurt each other. And for especially Oralbai to continue with that amount of damage is insanely impressive, and I think it definitely earns them fight of the year. I think they got robbed, and I'm giving them the award in the Axel Fight Awards. So yeah, definitely correct to me. But then we'll go to the most hyped prospect. This was impossible for me to pick, pretty much. I added it because I want to highlight these people. These people, I'm picking multiple. These people are definitely the prospects of the year, in my opinion. It was impossible to pick between them, so I'm going to highlight all of them. The fighting nerds, I think, have definitely earned the prospects of the year. Every single one of them has an insane amount of hype going into 2025. Kyle Barajo has title fight like inklings at this point. One more fight, he has a title. Gene Silva knocked out Drew Dober in his last fight in a war, or not, didn't knock him out, but he got a cut finish. Crazy good prospect, insanely exciting. All four of these guys are some of the most exciting fighters you can have in fighting. Carlos Prates just beat Neil Magny by an insane KO. He's working his way up the rankings. Mauricio Rufy just beat James Lontop, I think, who is unchinnable, it seems, by decision, but a very, very entertaining, flashy decision. These four have made headlines in the MMA world to an insane degree. They're very known. They're getting their name out there. They're getting their gym known to the people, and just pretty much through their fight game and how exciting they really are. So it is very commendable, and I couldn't pick between the four of them, so I'm going to pick all four of them. The fighting nerds are the most hyped prospects of the year, I think, by far. So yeah, that's that. Next, underrated, most underrated fighter. And this is purely my opinion, as all of these are, but I feel that the most underrated fighter this year is not getting the attention he deserves for the fights he has done comparatively to the rest of his division. I'm going to go with Jack Della Maddalena. And this is because of how much hype Shavkat Rakhmonov is getting and other fighters are getting in the welterweight division. And it seems that Jack is getting left out of the discussions a lot of the time, at least from my side, from what I'm seeing. Jack is getting unfairly judged by most people. And I don't understand, because he knocked out Gilbert Burns with a broken arm. I feel like that gives you some merit going forward in your career. And I feel like he doesn't get the hype he deserves. And Shavkat Rakhmonov, at the time being, everybody's saying Shavkat deserves a title shot when he's coming off a win against Stephen Wonderboy at the time. And Gilbert's coming off a win against, or Jack's coming off a win against Gilbert. Much more impressive win against a much more well-rounded opponent at the time. I don't get that very much, to me. I feel like Jack is not getting what he deserves in terms of hype. And I feel like he deserves more. So yeah, I put him in the most underrated fighter of the year. There are some others, but I think, and it's not all, like, a lot of it is his fault. He's very boring on the mic and stuff. He's not really getting his name out there very much. But in terms of just merit and what he's done in the octagon, for his excitement level also, I feel like he definitely deserves to be more hyped up in general. So yeah, he's in my most underrated fighter of the year. So now we have the final one. We have most improved fighter of the year. And I think this is fairly obvious as well. I was going through between two of them. I was going between Volkov and the one I eventually picked. But Volkov, his rise to the top has been a multiple year span of fights that he's been doing good, really good. So I'm highlighting this year. And in this year, the person who did the best overall in terms of improving his fight game and working his way up the rankings has to be Renato Moicano to me. He is a couple fights away from being in the top 5. He made a name for himself on the mic. He's amazing on the mic whenever he goes up there. So he's made an incredible name out of his fights and out of how he speaks. He has a podcast. He's really getting his name out there. And his fights have looked amazing. He also probably gets comeback of the year, to be honest. After getting rocked by Jalen Turner at 300, he comes back and beats his ass and finishes him. He just beat Benoit Saint Denis fucking 7 times easier than Poirier beat him. Renato Moicano went from kind of a veteran that people know, and that's pretty good, but you can tell he's kind of where he's going to be in terms of his career, or he's just going to keep going down to a possible contender for the title in 1 year, pretty much. He did this. And pretty much out of nowhere. It's his last shot at the title. He's getting old. It's his last run, and he's making the most out of it, especially this year, putting on some crazy highlight performances and making us care about him, which is the most important part of making money in the UFC, I think, is making people care about you. So, for most improved fighter, definitely Renato Moicano for what he's done this year. Definitely deserves it. And I can't wait to see what he does next year. So yeah, this is the Axel Awards. I'm going to be making a video highlighting the opposite of this, the Axel, like, shittiest awards in my next video. Where we'll do least exciting, least best trash talker, least flashy finish. We'll just do the least out of all of these categories. But that'll be my next video. I want to know what you guys think about my picks. So yeah, that's about it. I will see you soon. I'm excited for 2025.